welcome General Manager, Cloud Strategy, Don Rippert.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks to all of you for coming to Interconnect. I appreciate your attendance and your interest in this session. I tell you, it's not hard to see where you stand at IBM. Just about an hour ago, my boss, Robert LeBlanc, was up on stage giving a presentation. There was a band playing music. There was a guy running around taking selfies of everybody. Where's all that stuff gone? Apparently, you have to be a senior VP to rate a band. General managers don't rate a band. I would have taken a couple guys with kazoos. But I mean, one of the things that I kind of was watching the band play while the earlier presentations were going on, you know, I got to think about things a little bit. People keep talking about, you know, how the cloud really makes everything so simple. It's simple, simple, simple. Kind of. I mean, it's still a very sophisticated environment. It's sophisticated processing, building sophisticated applications. And I looked at that band, and they got a lot of stuff there. I mean, and why do they have so many things? And when they were playing, they had even more things. They've got one kind of an emergency guitar, just kind of on a ready to go, I guess, in case of Stairway to Heaven break glass. Well, they have a lot of things, and they have a lot of electronics, and they have a lot of instruments because they're good. And those tools help them amplify and magnify their talent, and they were very talented. The tools that we build for cloud development are meant to help amplify and magnify the talent of the developers. They're not designed to make things so simple that a trained dog could do it. They're designed to make things so good that you can build the best possible apps in the shortest possible time. So that's my sermon on simplicity in the cloud. I am, as introduced, the general manager of cloud strategy at IBM. And I'm going to talk a bit about the future of cloud. I'm going to try to use a lot of examples. I'm going to bring up a couple of our customers to talk about what they've been doing in the cloud. I'm going to have one of our IBM fellows demonstrate some of the products that we're announcing in this conference. But I'm going to pin it all back to my belief that there are four visible stages of cloud. And this is, you should take this as Don Rippert's belief, not official IBM belief, but this is my belief. This is how I kind of frame things in my mind. And we're in the second stage. So the first stage was what I'd call the era of infrastructure. People tended to see clouds as variable infrastructure that they could use to offset some need for infrastructure they had behind their firewall. I didn't want to have a dev test environment because I don't use it all that often, so I do my dev test in the cloud even for the apps that run behind the firewall. I'm using that infrastructure, the era of infrastructure. The second era is the era of hybrid apps. And that's where we are now. People are building applications that are more than just using infrastructure. They're doing more than just taking advantage of somebody's server or storage. They're actually processing business transactions. The third phase, which is coming, and not quite mainstream yet, is the era of composable applications through application programming interfaces, through APIs. And you heard from Citibank earlier this morning, they have a next generation of hackathon that's not like the old one, because this next generation requires the people to use the APIs that Citibank is publishing. I think in this third phase of cloud, you're going to see a lot of developers using capabilities from many clouds to compose quickly an application primarily based on the APIs that they're buying. And then finally, the last phase that I can see is the era of hybrid data. Right now, if you're an enterprise, you're collecting data. Hopefully you're managing the data you collect pretty well. But you don't have all the data you need. So you should be able to go out and buy data from data vendors. And just like you create hybrid applications, you should be able to create hybrid data stores. For example, if you're an insurance company and you want to look at weather data, you should go buy weather data. And in this world, people won't be just buying applications through APIs, they'll be buying data sets. And I'm going to tell you as we go today about how the things that we're announcing today, help not only in the current phase, the hybrid application phase, but will help our customers in the era of the API-based composable process phase and in the era of the hybrid data phase. So it all is going to come down to digitization. You've heard it over and over again. We're going to keep saying it until you guys demand we stop saying it, or until you believe it. I don't know which, but the beatings will continue until morale improves. The three things we see that are kind of key for digitization is you want to move the decision-making to the front line. The days are kind of gone where somebody sits, in a castle, I don't know, in a fantasy land place like, I don't know, Armonk, New York, and tells everybody in the front line what to do and how to do it. What we want instead is we want people on the front line to have access to data and analytic capability so they can make the decisions closer to the customer. And I'll talk about companies doing that. Insight-driven processes. We want to augment the day-to-day decision-making with the information that's coming out of our systems and out of our processes. We want to have better processes. And then finally, digital innovation. New businesses you just couldn't do 10 years ago. Sometimes they're the province of startups. Sometimes they're the resurrection of companies that have found their prior business model not working anymore. And I'll tell you that both of those occur. So this is fully happening. Let me start with a couple of examples. You heard a little bit about the Delhaize Group. Delhaize was founded in 1847. It is a supermarket chain composed of several different brands. Food Lion is one of them. They have 3,500 stores. Now, they wanted for their Food Lion chain to understand the relationship. They wanted to get more frontline data. They wanted to have their store managers able to access and make decisions for the store. And there's a particular Food Lion in a place called Corolla, North Carolina, that if you went to it right now, it would be virtually abandoned. But if you go to it in 6 months, it'll be the busiest Food Lion on the face of the planet Earth, because it sits right in the middle of this beach community that is 0 people in the winter and tons of people in the summer. And if you're managing that store, you better not be listening to what corporate tells you on what to order, because corporate can't aggregate all the stores together and say, you should be, why aren't you buying meat right now? And the answer is because I don't have any customers right now. They come in July. And when they're here, I'll have some meat. Delhaize bought weather data, so they were already working a little bit in that 4th phase. They took their store data, they took demographic data, and they tracked what changes in things like weather, rural versus urban, changed the buying patterns for products inside their store. They came up with some very interesting results. Not all of them are, I'm not allowed to talk about all of them, but some of them were, when it gets hotter, people buy more beer, to a point. But then when it gets hot enough, they don't. So the beer isn't a curve. The beer is a curve like this, not a curve like that. And these are the kinds of things that the store owners need to understand, because they've got to keep the right inventory in stock. Happening today, supermarket company, not a startup in Silicon Valley, 150 years old. The next one is the Ajuntament de Barcelona, which is a group of municipalities around Barcelona, Spain. These guys were founded as a Roman city in the Roman Empire, so they really go back a way. And if you've ever been to Barcelona, and a lot of people have, they make a lot of money running conferences, kind of like Vegas. I mean, it is big business for Barcelona to bring people in to go to the GSM World Congress, etc., in Barcelona. And the people who run these municipalities are vitally concerned with getting you keep coming back. Well, they've got a beautiful setting. They've got great culture. They have super food. They want to keep their parks and beaches clean, because they know that when you're walking by a park, or you're walking in a plaza, or you're seeing one of their beautiful beaches, if the trash cans are overflowing and if things are messed up, you're going to form a poor opinion. So they created a system that takes data in from all kinds of different places, including citizens' mobile phones, and they say to themselves, if the waste disposal truck was supposed to have been to that park this morning and hasn't been there, I'll wager that the trash cans are full. So I'm going to send someone to go empty those trash cans, because part of our deal in Barcelona is to keep things looking good, so that we keep the conventioneers coming in, so that we keep the jobs in Barcelona. Very sophisticated, very valuable, very useful, and not very expensive. And then the final one, kind of on the digital innovation, to talk about Pitney Bowes. Pitney Bowes was founded in 1920. They're almost 100 years old. And for those of you who remember your corporate history, the primary product that Pitney Bowes made for many of those years was a postage meter. And if you were in any business that routinely sent written mail communications, you sent bills out, it was a lot more convenient to use a meter than it was to go buy stamps at the post office and lick them and put them on the envelopes. Well, that held them in very good stead for many, many years, until people stopped sending bills by the post. People started sending bills by email. People started paying with credit cards online. The amount of mail correspondence fell, and suddenly being in the postage meter business wasn't quite as good a place to be as it had been in the past. So they revolutionized themselves. They reimagined themselves. They still do some work around postage, but they are powering the internet economy. They have all kinds of software. They've figured out that what they really understood were location, geolocation, distance. They have geolocation software, reverse geolocation software. If you go to Bluemix, you will see Pitney Bowes software as viable products within our Bluemix. So here's a company that their business model had gotten into some trouble through no fault of their own, and they had to pivot and use the new digital revolution as a means of innovation so that they could get into a business that had more growth potential. So these are 3 examples happening now, companies that are 100 years old, not startups, that are using this transition from automating the back office to automating the front office to either competitively improve their position, like Barcelona, move into new markets, like Pitney Bowes, or analyze their data and run more efficient operations, like Delhaize. Happening now, not something in the future. You'll also notice that all 3 of these companies that I talked about are existent, which means that they have legacy environments. They didn't spring into action yesterday. They didn't throw away all of the work they'd done on their IT systems and just start again fresh in cloud. They had to marry the 2 together. And I'll predict that in 5 years, the term hybrid cloud will no longer be used. And it won't be used because everything will be a hybrid cloud. It'll be redundant. If you say cloud, you're saying hybrid cloud. In a world where you've got existing companies with legacy IT or traditional IT, that's where the data is, you're going to have a hybrid cloud when you put something in the cloud. If you're a startup and you're building API-based capabilities, you're going to hybridize multiple clouds together. I can't imagine the unicorn that sits in one cloud unconnected to anything else and somehow operates a viable business 5 years from now. So if it is cloud, it's going to be hybrid cloud. And one of the keys for today, one of the keys in the era of hybrid applications is to get the hybrid cloud right. And much like those guys play some sophisticated instruments because they're talented and good and they sound better when they do, some of the work to do around making the hybrid cloud work requires a bit of sophistication. It isn't just bolting things together. You've got to think about portability, you've got to think about visibility and control, and above all else, you've got to continually think about developer productivity. At the end of the day, the goal of cloud is to make businesses more competitive, not to hybridize things together. Those are all means to an end. The end is productivity. So we're going to talk a bit about those. But first, we're going to have a video. So you saw the National Express branding, and you can probably imagine it's an application for transit. What you might not know is we have the mastermind behind that application here with us today. Chris Tibbetts, please come on up. Let's have a chat about what you did. Here for a water?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay. I always think it's amazing. You see these sophisticated applications with people gliding through train stations, and this little thing lights a light up in the back room and somebody presses their finger to advance the slides. You would think if you could get that kind of application to work, you could get this to actually advance the slide instead of lighting a light. But anyway, let's talk a little bit, Chris. What's your role? What do you do with the project?
Okay, thank you. Well, firstly, great, thanks for inviting me. It's a really great opportunity. I get goosebumps even now when I see that video, because this time last year that didn't even exist. We didn't even have the franchise, and it's been a massive transformation for us. My role at National Express, I'm the head of rail innovation, so in our franchise bids, I come up with the great ideas with a team, and then when we win, deliver them. I've been working in the rail industry for now about 13 years. I've covered the majority of sectors, from customer service, operations, fleet, then find myself in IT.
Oh, good. So what is the National Express business model? What's the basic way of making money, serving customers, etc.?
We've got 4 divisions in National Express. We have North America. I know some of my colleagues are here at the conference as well. In North America, we do school transportation, ground transportation, so yellow buses. National Express run a large majority of those. In Spain and North Africa, we run city buses and intercity services. In the UK and Germany, we have heavy rail, local bus services in Birmingham and Dundee. We run a tram service in Birmingham as well. And we have a heavy rail operation in C2C, and we have our services in Germany.
Wow. So you got quite a bit of transportation business around the world, huh?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this application. You know, what drew you toward building this? Why did you do it in the cloud? Why did you do it with IBM?
Well, as I say, in the UK we have franchises let by the government for anything up to 15 years. Now, when you're sitting down with a team of people in a room, responding to a tender, being asked to tell the government what you think transportation is going to be like in 15 years' time, trust me, my crystal ball is pretty good, but it's not that good. So we had to think of a partner to work with who would really look to the future and look at the new technologies and help us address the challenges of the passenger in the future. We are passionate about data, we're passionate about delivering outstanding customer service, and we really needed to find a business partner who married that with us. It was really important to have somebody who shared our vision, and in that we found that in IBM. Our partner team were outstanding on our last bid, and the development team who worked on C2C and helped us bring C2C live to life has been outstanding. Good.
Now, I've heard the term right-time railway used as sort of a goal. What does that mean?
Okay, we are very proud of our C2C operation. It is one of the most punctual services in the world. We currently run at 97.4% right-time trains. And right time in the rail industry is measured by something called a public performance measure, and that is the amount of trains that arrive within 5 minutes at their arrival destination. Now, obviously, we currently run at 97.4%. However, right time, we're moving into big data now. We're moving into delivering to our passengers, getting there within 2 minutes. Because on a commuter rail like ours, which has 100,000 passenger journeys a day, 5 minutes is still not really acceptable to people. These are passengers who are travelling every day, and they want a punctual service. So our aim in the new franchise is to deliver a 90% right time at every station. And by right time, we mean within 1 minute, not 5 minutes.
And has the application helped you with that? Do the customers like it? Are more people riding your transit?
Yeah, I think the big challenge we've got with the 15-year franchise ahead of us is that we've got lots of data from disparate sources, and I hear your conversations about legacy systems. Trust me, the rail industry has got mountains of legacy systems, and some of them have been going since the days of computing began. What we have to really do with this is open our data to passengers and really get them to understand, you know, what we're doing and where the information is. Because if you inform customers, then they're more reliant to actually accept your answers. What they won't do is accept disparate information. In the rail industry, you have a problem with multiple data sources giving the wrong information, and that can really, really upset customers. So what we're doing with the cloud is actually taking all of those data feeds and saying, right, okay, what is the single version of the truth? And using IBM's Intelligence Operations Center, that's really powering it, because within it, it's got a multi-node message broker service that allows us to aggregate all this data and deliver that single view to the customer.
Beautiful. Sounds like a real successful project. And is there any way I could get you to do this for Dulles Airport? That would make my life a lot better. We'd love to, but we've got enough challenges within our own rail industry to get it right. And I'll say this is just the building blocks for our industry. This is about revolutionizing big data and being able to just put everything out in the cloud. We even have a franchise commitment to open up our data sources to everyone to be able to use it to develop applications themselves, to understand it. We have a big push on delivering what we call a public performance promise to our customers, where by using the power of the cloud and the power of the Intelligent Operations Center, we will actually be able to give individual customers their own performance report based on their journeys that they've made, which is a UK first and probably a world first in rail. Well, that's great. And now, you're going to be talking in more detail on Wednesday morning about this as well, in one of the breakouts?
Yeah, that's right. And with my partner from IBM Global Business Services, we're going to go in more depth about the story and the journey we took, and show you some of the real cool things we've got coming later this year.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being a customer, and I appreciate you coming to Interconnect.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, so we've gone through a little bit and talked about the stages of cloud, and I should be clear that the 4 stages in my mind are not the end. They're just the 4 that I can imagine right now. So I won't regale you with my version of 50 Shades of Cloud. We'll just keep it at 4. So here comes the hard part, right? You want to do all these cool things. You want to have things like C2C. You want to have the products that they have in Barcelona. You want to reinvent your business like Pitney Bowes. The plumbing and mechanics of it are relatively complex, if done right. They're not hard, they're not impossible, they're achievable, but it's not just bolting together a cloud and a legacy system. You've got to deal with it in multiple tiers. This is our model of hybrid cloud. You'll see it up there. You'll see integration, extended portability, data services and localization, seamless delivery, operational visibility, surrounded by security and centered on open source. Right, that's our mental model of how to achieve hybrid cloud, whether it's cloud to cloud or cloud to traditional. And I'll talk a little bit about that and try to put some of our announcements into context. An example of extended portability is Santander. Banco Santander is a large incumbent Spanish bank that operates in multiple countries, and they were doing a loan risk analytics system, and they ran into a problem. The problem was that the country of Brazil will not let you transport that data out of Brazil. It's considered private data. It's about your home loan, your salary, and things like that. So Santander wanted to analyze that data, couldn't ship it to one place to analyze it, so they worked with us on the container-based extended portability to send the workload to the data rather than trying to consolidate all the data in a central place and thereby violating Brazilian law. So if you're going to have that kind of hybridity, if you're going to be doing things in the cloud, you've got to be able to either move the data to the workloads or the workloads to the data. The announcements we made around extending Docker, around enterprise containers, are all about getting containers to the point that they're as trustworthy from a control perspective as virtual machines, and using these lightweight containers over a network to get workloads to the data. That's what the announcement was about. We're convinced we're going in the right direction. And I'd ask you to think for a minute about that API economy. Think about a world where a single application is composed of 8 APIs that are coming from 8 different clouds. Where does the data that application writes go? Does the data go in 8 different clouds, 12.5% in each? That sounds like a train wreck to me. How do I control it? How do I analyze it? Or does invoking the API send me a container with a workload that I run on my home cloud where I keep my data? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question just yet, but I'd suggest there's more of a future in sending the workloads to the data than sending the data to the workloads. And if you believe that, then having the kind of IBM corporate containers we've got is a big step forward toward that phase of the cloud. In the area of data services and localization, Bernhard is another 150-year-old furniture company in North Carolina, and they wanted to do what a lot of people want to do. They wanted to automate the front office to go along with what they'd already done in the past, automating the back office. And what they specifically wanted to do is they wanted to give their salesmen iPad applications that would let them go walk with customers through the furniture showroom and help them imagine what that furniture would look like in their living room. That's a big point to a customer. You see a couch, you see a chair, you see a table. Will it fit? How big are those things? How big is my room? How would I arrange them? How does it look? So they wrote it. They created it in Bluemix. And one of the challenges is that they needed to get data that they kept behind the firewall into the cloud so that it could come up on those iPads on the application that was written in SoftLayer using Bluemix. And they did that with a product we have, a company we bought called Cloudant. We bought Cloudant just about a year ago today. We announced it at this conference last year. Cloudant is a replicating database. So it'll store multiple copies of things as part of its design. And in fact, it's a policy-based replicating database. So you can tell Cloudant when it's working with DB2, for this type of an update, replicate a copy into the cloud, and for another kind of an update, don't replicate a copy into the cloud. So what Bernhard does is they replicate the data that they change inside their systems of record behind their firewall. If its policy says that that data should go into the cloud because it's usable in that Bluemix created application, then we use Cloudant to replicate that data into the cloud. We have 2 managed sources of the data. In this case, we're taking the data to the workload, and there are certainly times you want to do that. Now, this is fairly static data, but that's what they're doing. If you want to talk about the next stage of operational visibility and control, AXA is a financial services company, very well known. If you're going to control a public and private cloud, and you want them to cooperate, the first thing you have to do is to get them to configure properly. You've got to use the same configuration commands on both. And what AXA is doing is using our pattern-based configuration products to take one pattern and configure both environments. So now I can have the opportunity to interconnect them. If I misconfigure one of the 2 environments, I can't interconnect them. So the first step in getting the visibility and particularly the control is to get the configurations right. Integration, SunTrust Bank wants to, and this is the fundamental level of hybrid, they want to send information from behind their firewall into the cloud. They use Cast Iron, a company we bought a few years ago, a product we have called API Management. Their developers write APIs that do data access in their traditional systems. Those APIs have corresponding APIs in the cloud, and the developers in the cloud invoke those APIs, and that goes and gets the data from the traditional system, brings it into the cloud. A lot of good happens here. First, the developers are more productive because each one of them is not writing their own data access mechanism. And second, because we use the best data access developers to write the APIs, the data accesses are efficient. So we get better productivity, we get connectivity, and we get efficiency of access because we use an API-based integration tool set. The seamless delivery point source is a kind of a next generation content creation company. Sort of in that halfway between a systems integrator and an advertising agency is kind of how I would describe them. I don't know if they describe themselves that way, but I would. They're using the DevOps tools in Bluemix, and they've cut 50% of the time off of their Scrum, of their weekly Scrum, daily Scrum length. So they're compressing the development time so that they can develop things quicker and cheaper for their customers. Another big benefit of cloud, but if you can't deliver it, if you can't deploy it, if you don't have the tools to take the code from where you wrote it to where you want to run it, then it doesn't matter how fast you develop it because you can't get it out there and running properly. So if you're going to have a hybrid environment, you're going to develop here and deploy there, you're going to put it in 3 different data centers, you'd better have your DevOps tool sets right. So now we get to kind of the bigger one, the security everywhere. CNA is an insurance company based in Chicago, and they realized what we know, and that is your security approach behind the firewall is to build a perimeter. You say, look, you don't come into my door unless I know who you are. And if I don't know who you are, I'm going to shut the door on you. Well, if you get in my cloud, you can't block out my other customers. That's what I sell the thing for, is that when you're not using that server, somebody else is. So you can't put a perimeter security in the cloud. What you need to do is you have to have a tiered security in the cloud, and it has to attach to your perimeter security behind the firewall. And one of the best ways to do that is with products like QRadar, which is one of our security analytics products that not only creates, finds intrusions, but looks for anomalies. It's a pattern-based product. It sees how transactions normally get processed. It starts seeing something that doesn't look the same as it did yesterday, and it shuts it down. It says, all right, don't like this. Let's have somebody look at this. So when you start trying to marry a hybrid security environment with perimeter security versus multi-tiered, one of the best ways to get them to cooperate is to have an analytics engine that's looking at what's going on in both environments, and that's what CNA is doing with us. Oh, I love marketing. IBM is open by design, and it's a trademark. Well, that's good. Because I'd hate to think that we set out to wrote a huge proprietary system and accidentally used a bunch of open code, and we're open by accident. We very much are intentional open source devotees. You see it with Cloud Foundry, which is the basis of Bluemix. You see it with what we've done to extend Docker and contributing that back. You'll see it with the way that we helped the Node.js community move to a more open governance model for open source. And that was one we just finished a couple of weeks ago. We don't just subscribe to the open source theory, we subscribe to the open governance open source theory. And if you look at what we've done with Eclipse and you look at what we've done with Node-RED, we don't just say people should do this, we do it. And the reason we do it is because if we focus on open source, customers have a better chance of being able to move to something else they like better in the future. Do we want our customers to move off our products? No. Do we think our customers will buy our products if they know that they're less locked in? Yes. So our job is to make these products with less lock-in and then try to keep them so good that you don't want to move. But we don't want to keep you on our products because you can't move. And one of the ways we facilitate less lock-in is by using these open source, open governance projects as the basis for a lot of our products. The announcements, how do they fit with hybrid? I'm going to go through these probably pretty quickly. I'll pick a few of them. The containers we talked about, move the workload to the data. Lightweight, much smaller than a VM, don't transport the operating system, just containerize Linux. You get data segregation based on the container inside of Linux. It's the it thing in IT right now, so I don't presume I have to defend containers. What you don't want to do is run a container inside a VM. I mean, really? The whole point was to get rid of the VMs and get to the lightweight containers if that's your choice, if that's what you want to do. Everyone said, wait a minute, these VMs have a lot of things that help us control and get visibility, and it's not just the fact that it provides data isolation, it's a management tool beyond a data isolation tool. We said, well, let's extend the containers. Let's make containers have those same properties so that we don't have to put a container in a VM and ship that whole thing. When we're shipping things in the API economy and when you're requesting workloads to go to your data from multiple different clouds over an unreliable, sometimes network, having a small container with your workload rather than a monstrous VM is going to prove to be very valuable. So I would say that once again, we're trying to play not just for today's world, but for a little bit of tomorrow's world, when people like Citibank are exposing lots of APIs for people to use in developing applications. Visibility and control, you heard about DataWorks. What you heard Jerry Cuomo talk about was something called data shaping. So data shaping is a set of tools that let you go to a data set and carve the bit of the data set out you want and take it. Right? Why would you want to do this? Well, in a world where you're buying data, you may not want to buy all the data in the data set. If you're an American insurance company and you're buying weather data because you're trying to get hailstorm predictions so that you can alert your customers when a hailstorm's coming and they can try to get their car under cover and not get all dinged up by the hail, You don't need the Australian weather data. You don't have any customers in Australia. So why would you buy Australian weather data? Meanwhile, the weather guys are selling all the weather data they've got, which is what they should do. So you need a set of tools that can carve out the pieces of the data you want, either by row or by column, and take that and put it in your data center. Now that's the fourth phase of cloud. That's what DataWorks does, one part of what DataWorks does. And we're playing that game a bit ahead. Now the weather company sells weather data today. Delhaize uses weather data that they bought today. So these are things that some companies are doing. We predict more will be doing it. And we want to have the right products in place, not just for the early adopters, which we do, but for the mainstream adopters that come perhaps a couple years down the road. API Harmony. You heard Jerry talk about this. Watson-based, goes out and looks at the APIs that are for sale in the market. You say, I want an API to do address verification. It goes bip, bip, bip. Here are the 4 APIs that I read about. I'm Watson, that I read about, that seem to fit your need. In a world where there's 10,000 APIs to choose from coming from 1,000 different clouds, you're going to get lost. It's going to be the needle in the haystack theory. Something's got to help you keep up with where these APIs are. Something's got to help you find them, and something's got to help explain whether that looks like the right kind of API to potentially weave into your application or not. That's what API Harmony does. Again, phase 3 cloud work. Valuable right now if you're building API-based apps. A few are, many more will be. Secure Passport Gateway. Everyone has a secure gateway. What's so good about this? Well, it's secure and it's a gateway, so that's good. It's the passport part that's important. So the developer can input their credentials once and then can open that gateway either manually or through an application via an API. In that case, we're trying to make the developer more productive. Yes, everybody has a gateway that's secure. Yes, we do too. We think ours is more productive. That's the difference between our gateway and some of our competitors' gateway. And then Bluemix Local, all right? Bluemix is our platform as a service, Cloud Foundry based. You've seen it demoed. It'll be demoed out here again later throughout the course of Interconnect. We had a public cloud version of it on SoftLayer. You could go log on, get an account, and start developing. Then we created a dedicated cloud version of it. So if you're a company and you want your version, single tenant, you can have that on SoftLayer. Today we announced the local version of it. So this is behind your firewall, running on your infrastructure, on top of your network, behind your perimeterized security, but in software, but in communication with our master copy. So the big problem of putting all of those cool services behind your firewall is we have to keep them updated. We have 75 services that are being updated all the time, just like when your Mac or your PC wants to download the next version of something or other. These downloads are happening every few minutes because those vendors are pushing those products forward like this, and you want the latest version of the product. So the genius of the local Bluemix wasn't just to run it on your infrastructure, it was to run it on your infrastructure and keep it in sync with the master Bluemix. And that's what we've done. That's what we've announced. So if you decide you don't want to be in the cloud, period, but you do want to have a modern development environment composed of the latest possible services, you can implement local Bluemix. And I think that was a big step. We announced Bluemix at this event a year ago. That's 1 year of work, 3 Bluemixes, 70 services, complete hybrid integration, complete software management, best DevOps in class. I mean, this thing is really great. You know, my 1 year anniversary will be March 3rd with IBM, and a big reason why I came out of retirement to go work for IBM was because of Bluemix. I just saw the potential in that thing and said, you know, I want to be with the company that's doing that. It is that good. It is that far ahead. Really, and I urge you, if you haven't seen it, please do look at it because it is just a masterpiece. Wish I could say I wrote it. Wish I could say I designed it. I didn't do any of those things, but I do like it. So, we're going to move to another customer event. Snehal Desai is with us from Dow Water and Process Solutions. If you could come up, please. We're going to do a little... Thank you.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Fine. Would you like some water?
Yeah, but before we start, I understood your concern. I was concerned as well, being a GM, of not getting the love of the selfies and the band. So why don't we take one? I'll take one. I'd like to keep,
all right.
let's figure
Fair
out
enough.
what we want in the background.
I mean, the water doesn't even have labels on it when
well,
you're
and by
GM.
the way, this isn't just for you and I. It's the only way to tell my sons I actually do something serious for a living.
All right, here we go. Get the crowd in the background.
Get the crowd in the background. There we go.
All right, perfect. Thank you. You send that out.
I will.
I'll send it to LeBlanc. Say, Robert, yeah, I really did do that thing. So anyway, Dow Water, you guys do, my explanation, kind of water purification, water safety systems for drinking water and things like that. Is that
Yeah, I mean,
ballpark?
it is in the ballpark. You know, what we see ourselves doing is we're in the business of purifying what's essential to your life, my life, through advanced technology. Purification, separation is the heart of most water treatment systems, and it's not just water. We also get involved with employing those technologies in a number of other process streams, in the food industry, in the energy sector. You know, you name it, we're there. And we've been in the business. Dow as a company has been around for well over 100 years. I think that theme's come out today. And the business that I have the opportunity to run has been around for 70 years. So people rely on these core technologies to help them deliver, reliably deliver quality of water, quantity of water to do everything that we need to do. So it's what we do as a business. And it's what really gets us up in the morning, is that impact that we can make. So it's a very core part of what Dow's trying to do in the world, which is really affect you know, people's lives and markets all around the world.
And so this is life or death stuff. I mean, if the water isn't purified or the water is contaminated, you got a real big problem. This isn't minor.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, anywhere from drinking water systems. We were fortunate enough to be involved in a very large desalination project in Carlsbad, and it's going to be the largest of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. And that is a project that helps when you get to the point where the scarcity challenges we're facing today are where they are. You can focus on reliability, you can focus on efficiency, you can focus on reusing water, but then ultimately you might need to get some new water, and we've been a part of that. So that's an everyday issue. But all industry runs on water, and there's a lot been talked about the energy-water nexus. I mean, even in this industry, your data centers, they need energy, they need water to cool, they need energy to power them. So we sit in the middle of a lot of those conversations, and it is life or death, more life,
yeah,
and better life, actually, as it turns out.
Yeah, I like the way it makes my bourbon taste when the water's nice and clean. That's important, too.
We have a great infographic on how important it is to the beer process.
I'm sure it is. So you've been in business for 70 years with Dow Water. Dow's been in business even longer. You saw a need to kind of reinvent your business or progress your business forward. You saw an opportunity to use cloud. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Sure. So I'll take it from a couple of angles. Number one, we've seen an explosion over the last 15 years of just development in the emerging economy. And what that's led to is a number of new systems that have been developed. And, you know, for people to use our technology, they typically work with engineering firms. They work with people that are quite sophisticated and understand how to design systems. But as you move offshore and you try to bring all that knowledge forward, it's tough. So we actually developed design tools to help our customers better prepare themselves for designing the right kind of system. And, you know, when the market's a little bit smaller and you can have your people go out and help, there's an opportunity for us to, while the tools are helpful, they're really doing a lot of self-help, and that's accelerated. We just can't keep up. And we've also, over time, invested in other technologies that require a similar type of design practices and design solutions. And so when we were looking, really 5 years ago, is where we started a project to try to integrate all of these different tools. And 5 years ago, it's a long, long time. A lot of stuff's changed, not the least of which everything we heard about this morning and what you're talking about with regards to how people want to utilize these software tools, how they want to be able to access them from wherever. So almost a year and a half ago, we were 4 years into a journey. We've already laid out the path of what we want to develop as an integrated tool for our customers, but we were following a mindset that had been developed 5 years ago, which is it's going to be on a PC. It might actually, well, and I hate to say this, but it's because this is a technology and tool set that was available 27 years ago when I was a sales guy. And by the way, I was 12, so I had to have the ability to use it very quickly. But 27 years of giving people, disks and floppies and downloads and all that, but it was always on their system, always on their laptop, always in their hands. But in the last years that's changed, and so we said, well, this is not going to be a way for us to go forward from a deployment point of view. And another couple of things change. Water quality is changing around the world faster than it ever has. And so you have to be able to model that inside these tools for it to be an effective engineering program. And number two, we're developing innovations. Those innovations are really taking advantage of these opportunities in the market. We have to get that pushed out to this massive user base of people that are trying to design systems. So all of a sudden, that old solution wasn't really going to be effective. And so at the end of 2013, we faced a challenge. We said, well, we're about to go live, and it felt like we were going live in yesterday's way. And the opportunity arose for us to engage with IBM. They have been a strong partner for Dow over as long as I've been with the company, and they were really well positioned to help us rethink how we might go forward. And the good news was we didn't have to throw away all the work that we had done. But it was around how do you deploy it in a way that really kind of future-proofs it, really starts to play to the advantages of our customers that are sitting in all parts of the world, India, Saudi Arabia, China, Vietnam, Latin America, Eastern Europe. I mean, there are places in this world where people are trying to get access to advanced technologies for water treatment, and the practicality of us just doing downloads and shipping manual, I mean, it just didn't make any sense. So the reason for the cloud was really the speed that, I mean, we spent 4 years trying to figure this out. In 90 days, we were up and running in the first quarter. The agility, because, I mean, that future-proofing was important to me as a business leader, because I don't want to do this again. I would rather just keep improving it as things change. And as we buy companies and develop new technology, I want to keep advancing it. And the final thing is that the one thing that doesn't happen enough in our business, amongst our people, but with our customers, is collaboration. And this platform really just opens the door to that in a very different way. I mean, people are usually not competitive in the water business. You aren't worried about the guy next to you making better water. That's not the deal. It's about being able to get and solve the problem that we might have in a local community, that somebody is solving in one part of the world that another guy is facing. And so we're hoping that the future of what we're developing with Wave is to be able to provide that platform for communication and connectivity with our customer base.
So it sounds great, and it's clearly an important topic and an important area of commerce. What challenges did you have? You said that it took too long to get the first release out and it seemed old. Are there other challenges you had, other things you had to knock down on this journey?
Yeah, some of which I can't speak about. Well, I mean, they're the kind of challenges that any company has when you're trying to get people to change. And these design tools are the lifeblood of our technical service organization, our customers that have worked with us for many, many years. And when you change something, I mean, we were going to move somebody's cheese. We just happened to do it on this basis, and there's a lot of emotion around it. People like their data. They like to know where it is. They like to hug it at night. And if they can't do that, this is a problem. But I think that if we would have tried to deploy this approach 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been a completely different challenge than where we stand today. And I think we saw some great examples of what people expect as consumers, and we all are consumers, that even our design community is getting more comfortable with the idea that it's okay if my data doesn't reside in my room. It's okay if we all talk to each other. And so some of the challenges we've had is just convincing our own folks and our really hardcore users that they are going to get everything they had before and more, and not anything less. And then when you're designing a water system, I mean, let's face it, like I said, no, it's rarely competitive, but you also don't get paid to take risks.
Right.
It's a little bit like the train example from Chris. I mean, they better run on time. That better come out. I open the tap, it better come out. And so when we're talking about innovation, we're talking about reliability, these are the things that we're trying to design in to what we do as an environment for design. And it's not just for building new systems, it's to be able to understand, is the system that I invested in 5 years ago still performing at the rate that we expected it to? And trying to find a way to help them see how this reduces their risk. That was really the challenge.
Right.
And not just a cool tool. It's really around, how do I make your life easier? And before, we were giving them 5 different programs to do 5 different things. We were that was the easy pain point. But the tougher pain point is, how do you get them to understand that the way of delivery actually is also important innovation, and for us to be able to keep it up to date for them. So that was probably the biggest challenge, is really just getting people to open their minds to this as a way of doing business. And we've got great examples, and as a company, we're looking for more of these type of opportunities. Our business happens to be very uniquely positioned to be able to deliver and experiment in a way that isn't high risk, but it also lets you slice and dice your deployment. And I know the rest of the company in Dow, because we look at the agricultural sector, the packaging sector, the electronics, telecommunications, transportation. These are all the places where you'll find our technologies. A lot of our businesses are going this direction. They want to connect closer to the market. They want to go beyond their current transactional customers and into the value chain. And this kind of platform really does allow for that. And that's the exciting part. So while there's a challenge, there's always an opportunity to repackage that into an opportunity. And that's really where we're going right now with this.
I like that terminology, go further out into the value chain. I think that's exactly what companies are trying to do, and they're using these digitized technologies, mobile, cloud, internet, whatever, to do just that, and to kind of lock up with the customers a lot closer than they were.
Well, at scale too, right? So I think about my customer base. If you think about our value chain, I sell a core technology, they put it into a system. That system is deployed around the world in all kinds of different installations. I might have 2,000 customers. There are 400,000 industrial installations around the world. There's no way I can get to them. There's no way I can deliver in my capacity, so I have to have flexibility. There's a whole residential water treatment sector out there, mostly emerging in the Far East, and you have somewhere on the order of, I would say, 50 to 250 million individual consumers that are installing water treatment systems in their home at point of use to ensure quality. I can't touch all of them without having something that allows me to deploy in a very big way. So scale will be important for us, and adaptability will be important for us, and that's the kind of stuff that we're tackling right now. And that's, again, it's the opportunity on the other side.
Well, it sounds like an amazing project, and an amazing initiative you guys have going. Thank you for being a customer of ours, and thanks for coming to Interconnect and sharing your story with us and your project. And please, let's stay in touch and let me know where I have to take some of these products to make them even better for you.
Well, thanks for the partnership. And we've already started talking about Next Gen, so it's good stuff.
That's it.
Thank you
very much.
All right.
Okay, so we've heard 2 first-hand customer accounts about using cloud, using IBM Cloud, and they're both serious industries. One is a transportation industry that if it doesn't work, people don't get to their jobs, economies start falling down. The other one is a water purification industry where if you can't purify the water, people die. I mean, so the idea that cloud is only for startups or for these next-gen companies that are doing some teen chat app, it's just not true. I mean, the most serious companies in the world are using cloud and using IBM Cloud to accomplish their missions right now. Next gentleman I'm going to introduce is a colleague of mine, and as you'll see from the sign, he is an IBM Fellow. To give you an idea what that means, and this always embarrasses him, so he'll be blushing when he gets up here. If we filled every seat in this room and we filled every seat at Mandalay Bay, and we took the ratio of IBM employees to IBM employees who become IBM Fellows, there'd be 2 IBM Fellows in that crowd. It's that high of an honor. And we make very few IBM Fellows, so when you meet them, my personal philosophy is I try to listen pretty closely, because I figure they must know a lot of stuff I don't know. Anyway, Jason's going to come up and show some of the products off from his perch. And so, Jason, come on out. You can never
Thanks,
get
Don.
these guys to come in the way they said they'd come in.
I had to sneak in on the back there for you.
There you go.
How are you?
Good. What are you going to show us today?
So I thought you did a great job talking about all these capabilities and the sophisticated capabilities we had to bring together to make hybrid real. I thought I'd show it.
How many lies did I tell?
We'll tell you later.
All right. There might have been a few.
So what we're going to do is we're going to work through a little scenario, an application, a hybrid application that a client built, a fictitious company, but one that will help us to kind of understand how clients are really using hybrid capabilities to build real applications. And in doing so, we'll kind of walk through some of the announcements that you made and show it to you in real life. So the fictitious application is a company called District Insurance. They're an insurance and financial products company. Their business model is they have agents who work on their behalf with clients to help them understand insurance and financial investment products that they might want to make available. And they've built an application for their agents to help them understand their customer, understand the behavior of their customer, and help recommend the right set of products to help those clients be more successful. And I thought what we would do is take a look at how did they actually build that application, because it's quite an interesting hybrid structure to it, where they have data coming from different sources that they have to pull together. So on the screen here you see the application itself, and what we're going to do over the next 10 minutes or so is actually walk through how we leverage capabilities in IBM Cloud and Bluemix to make this real. To help you understand what we're going to see, I want to show one architecture picture. Being a technical guy, I like architecture pictures. This application has three major parts. It has two sources of data. It has policy data, and it has data about the client, and then it has the application itself. Direct Insurance has decided that that policy data, for policy reasons, for regulatory reasons, they want to keep on-premise in their data center. So they need to be able to expose that on-premise data into this application that they're going to run on the public cloud. The customer data is, of course, also on-premise, but in this case, they want to be able to take that customer data, combine it with some public social data, and so they actually want to move a subset of that information out to the public cloud close to the application so that they can more easily access that information. So we have these two sources of data and an application. Maybe we should go look at how that's built. So we're going to come in to Bluemix. We're going to log in, and we're going to look at some of the new capabilities that we have to enable us to build out this application. And we're doing this live, so there's no faking yet, anyway. There's always a backup plan. So this is Bluemix. One of the things that you'll see that we've started to introduce this week is some new capabilities into Bluemix that allow us to bring in things like containers, new connectivity features, and the like. In order to get that on-premise policy data, the first thing we need to do is establish a connection between public Bluemix and the on-premise data center. And that's where the secure cloud gateway comes into place. Now, I'm actually going to take you through how we set this up. Jerry talked about it a little bit this morning. There's a component that runs in your data center, and it provides an endpoint into Bluemix that we can access those public services. That's already set up. You can see here that Direct Insurance has exposed their private cloud running in their New York data center into the Bluemix environment. In order to make that policy data available, they've decided they're going to store that policy data in an object store. Right? Object store is an infrastructure capability that allows you to store files and data easily. So what we want to do is connect the on-premise private cloud into Bluemix and expose the object storage services that are there. One of the new things that we've introduced this week is the ability to surface OpenStack-based infrastructure services into the developer experience in Bluemix. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to establish that connection. You can see here that we've already established a connection to our public infrastructure services on SoftLayer, so that if they wanted to use public ones, those are already there and built in. To add the private one, I need to go and fill out a little information about the private cloud environment. So this is a little bit of information that allows, and I'm going to cheat here, guys, to save us on typing, that allows us to tell Bluemix about where my environment is. This is the kind of information that the IT administrator might provide to the developer automatically, or might be the kind of process that the IT person does for the development team in advance, so that these are already available in the Bluemix environment. So there's a little bit of, this is the one part of the demo where you have to watch me type, I'm afraid. So these are all the endpoints for the OpenStack-based cloud that Direct Insurance is running in their data center. It's now successfully verified that it's connected to that environment. I can give it a name, DI Private Cloud New York, hit add, and we've now connected that on-prem infrastructure securely through the gateway into Bluemix. If we go back to the dashboard, and we can reload the dashboard here, one of the things you'll see is virtual machines have become available within that environment. Both public virtual machines, here down below, you can see that these blue ones are actually virtual machines running in SoftLayer under this person's account, and these purple ones are now virtual machines running on the private data center. But for this application, what we needed was an object store, right? So we'll go into the catalog in Bluemix, and we're going to select our object store service. And what we're going to do is we're going to provision an object store in which that policy data could be made available. All right? We're going to try that one more time.
And this object store is on-prem.
Yeah, this is an on-premise object store. That's not loading at the moment. We'll give it one more try. Is this where we make the comment about the network?
Yeah. You got to blame the Wi-Fi in the hotel. That's the first culprit.
Hotel Wi-Fi is terrible. I hate it. All right, one more time. Then we'll go do the backup. There we go. So we're going to provision this object store. We'll call it the DI policy store. And that will go create this object store that we can store that data in. Now, we actually have object store available in the public cloud, and we have it available in the private cloud. And one of the things we can do is select which one we want to use. So here we want to use object store in that private cloud connection that I just made. So that easily, we've now created the on-premise place to store all of that policy information. And what I'm going to do is bind that to a collection of services that we're going to use from this application. So we'll go into our service collection, we'll go in here, and we'll bind the service instance that I just created into that application so that we can use it later. So here it is, DI policy store, and we'll add it in. So that's the first piece of data. We now have a place to store all of the policy data. The second thing is around the customer data. Now the customer data, we'll do a refresh here to make sure we're good. The customer data, I said lived on-prem in a database, lives on-prem in a relational database. What we want to be able to do is select a subset of it, filter it a little bit, and replicate it into cloud in the public cloud. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go in here, we're going to select a data source. Here we have our on-premise database called customer sales, has all their customer information and sales data in it. This is DataWorks that you're seeing now. What DataWorks is going to let me do is easily, without any kind of coding, select the subset of information that I want to replicate continuously to the public cloud. I need some customer data. I need some of their order data. All right, so I've selected 2 tables of information that I want to make available to this app. Now, I don't want to copy everything. You know, like the customer data has Social Security or national identifier information in it. I don't want that to go into the public cloud. I want to filter that out. So what we need to do is shape the data. So we're going to select shape. We'll come in here, and we'll select the customer data. And what DataWorks is going to do is show us a subset of the information in the database so we can get a sense for what's available. You can see here we have a whole bunch of information. Now, for this application, they only really care right now about US customers. This is going to launch in the US first. So we're going to actually filter the data down so that we're only seeing US data. Right? So we'll remove all the information that doesn't have to do with the US. We see the national identity information that's here. We don't want that sent into our replica at all. So we're going to drop that column out. And then we also want to combine in some of the order data. So we're going to add the order data, and we're going to join this with the customer data. And so we're building up this data set that's the relevant information for this application. And you can see here that the blue ones are the customer data, and the green ones are the order data. The final thing we can do here is DataWorks can give us a sense of the quality of the information. It can do some analytics against the data and give us a sense for, well, how good is this data? Is it full of bogus information? Is there inaccuracies in the data? And so we can look at the data we just created and make sure we're confident that we have what we want. So we've now selected the data. The last step to get this final data source put together is to replicate it to the public cloud. So we have a shadow database in Cloudant running in the public cloud. We're going to connect that to Dataworks, or give it an activity name, and we're going to say run. So at this point, what's happening in the background is that Dataworks is replicating that subset into Cloudant, and it's going to do that continuously for us. So we always have the latest information.
So if I add another customer to that relational database, that legacy of relational database, Cloudant's going to recognize it, see that it was one of the filtered data sets, merge it with the order data, and send it to the cloud where it'll be replicated.
Send it back out to the cloud database. So now that's happening for me in the background all the time, and I can bind that service, that shadow database, to my application. So at this point, we've got all the data we need across this hybrid environment made available. The last step is, well, let's actually deploy the application. And in this case, the application has been created inside of a container. And they've done that so that they have the flexibility to deploy it where they need it, and also because it gives them an incredibly fast development lifecycle or pipeline that allows them to easily iterate on this application. So we have loaded into the new container services that we have in Bluemix the image, the Docker image for this application. We're going to select that from the private image registry that we have. We're then going to select how much resource do we need. In this case, this is a real production application, so we want it to be scalable and highly available. So we're going to deploy it as a scalable group of containers. And of course, we want it to be accessible from the internet. This is a public-facing application. So we're going to give it a route and a host name that allows us to connect that in. The final step is to bind that container to these services that we just created. So we're going to select that collection of services, and we're going to hit deploy. So at this point, Bluemix will deploy that application, and when it's up and running, you'll get a view that looks like this that says, my container-based application is available. I can get some sense for how it's performing. I can look at details around the instances that are running. I can even deep dive on logging and monitoring information to really get a sense for how this thing is performing. And of course, I can access the actual application. So if we go here, here's the app I just deployed, up and running on Bluemix with all the information that we made available. So that's how easy it is to take these disparate hybrid environments and compose them into real applications.
How many VMs did you have to use there?
There were none there.
None. That's the right number.
Fast.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
So we're coming to the end of our session here, and I hope you enjoyed being here as much as I enjoyed presenting and giving examples of companies where we've worked, bringing up customers onto the stage to talk about the projects that they're involved with, having Jason take a quick tour through the environment. And I would just ask to remember a couple of things. The evolution of the cloud, from infrastructure sharing to hybrid apps to API-based apps to hybrid data, that's ongoing. If your vendor doesn't have the kind of products that Jason's showing you, then you're going to stop somewhere in that progression. And the reason we have folks like Jason and many more working on these things is because we want to have the products before the market needs all the products. We want to have these products out and running. No VMs, native containers, data shaping, API management, Watson-defined APIs, local Bluemix, all announced today. We announced the Cloudant capabilities last October. We're in 40 different countries with our data centers. If you say my data can't leave Brazil, put it in our data center in Brazil and it won't leave Brazil. Those are all the things that people who are trying to get to be serious hybrid cloud developers have to worry about. There's a lot going on here at the Expo. There are a lot of demonstrations. National Express is going to be presenting on Wednesday morning, so come see Chris for a more detailed review. This is the end of the session. I think there's some boxed lunches out there, and thank you all very much for coming today.
Oh, don't you dare look back, just keep